From the point that I saw the man's best friend cover, I was like, I have thoughts. This is yet another example of Sabrina releasing an image, doing something, writing a song, what have you, where she's rage baiting a little bit. She's courting the controversy. And it happens pretty often. I've mentioned some instances, so I was like, you know what? Today's the day. It deserves its own topic, its own video. And so today, that's what I want to talk about. Some instances where Sabrina Carpenter, from 3 different album cycles, well, one is just a single, either bit back, lent into the controversy, maybe even did a little bit of rage baiting, but I do think it's better said as courting the controversy, or just deciding to lean in. So let's go ahead and get into it. I was very late to the driver's license lore, so I found out like years after everybody else that Sabrina Carpenter was the blonde girl being referred to in the song, the one that Olivia assumes the guy she's heartbroken over is now with.
And you're probably with that blonde girl who always made me doubt.
I don't think it was ever completely confirmed the song was about Joshua Bassett, but based on the clues in the lyrics, that's who people assume the song to be about. And looking into it, it doesn't even seem like a single other suggestion was put forth. Driver's License came out in January of 2021, and it's speculated that Olivia and Joshua's breakup, their relationship ended sometime in the summer of 2020. And they're both Disney kids, well, Sabrina Carpenter too, but Olivia and Joshua are both in High School Musical, the series, so I'm going to assume that that is where they met. And Olivia said about writing the song, "When I came up with Driver's License, I was going through a heartbreak that was so confusing to me, so multifaceted. Putting all of those feelings into a song made everything seem so much simpler and clearer. And at the end of the day, I think that's really the whole purpose of songwriting." It's also thought that around summer 2020 was when Sabrina and Joshua started dating or whatever, since their relationship was never officially confirmed either. Also in 2021, some websites were saying February, others were saying late January, just like a week after Driver's License, Sabrina releases the song Skin. Seems pretty clearly to be a response to Driver's License, because in the first verse, Sabrina references Olivia calling her blonde, which she is, but obviously it's being mentioned in an "I know you're talking about me" kind of way. And Sabrina says, though maybe in another timeline she and Olivia could have been friends, she is going to say her piece since Olivia quote-unquote started it.
Telling it how you see it, like truth is whatever you decide. Some people will believe it.
But in my opinion, Skin does kind of read as an "I see you're mad, but I won anyway" vibe. Because you know, the "while he's on my skin," that was just a little extra knife twist for fun. And this is a sort of song that, at least in my opinion, she would continue to make on Short and Sweet, because taste and even coincidence, very similar. And it probably did not help at all that Joshua reposted Sabrina's song on his story with a congratulations message to her. Skin also seemed to accuse Olivia of like constructing a very convenient story, if you will, to make herself look like the victim and Sabrina the bad guy, just to turn fans and people online against her. Which, you know, obviously happened because people can't be normal, especially online, and I would assume that both of them have a lot of young fans, especially back then. Skin was Sabrina's first release with her label Island Records. I think it was also a surprise release, but it started so much internet drama that people online were saying that there was no way that Sabrina's team didn't set this up to play out this way, and in fact, a lot of people were like, "Girl, your team set you up to be hated on." Not a good debut with the label. Others theorized the controversy was the goal to gain Sabrina even more attention because no press is bad press. Sabrina said in an Instagram caption, "I wasn't bothered by a few lines in a magnificent song and wrote a diss track about it. I was at a tipping point in my life for countless reasons. So I was inspired to do what I usually do to cope, write something that I wish I would have told myself in the past." I know the wording is a little confusing, but Sabrina is saying that Skin is not a diss track. In the following year, in 2022, Sabrina released Emails I Can't Send, which was her first album with Island Records. On it is the song Because I Like the Boy, which is thought to pretty clearly refer to the alleged love triangle between herself, Joshua, and Olivia, as well as the ensuing internet drama. The chorus goes,
I'm a slut. I got death threats filling up semi-trucks.
"Tell me who I am, guess I don't have a choice. I'm the hot topic on your tongue. I'm a rebound getting around stealing from the young. Tell me who I am, I guess I don't have a choice, all because I like the boy." Again, obviously pretty par for the course not to name names in songs like these. But for example, Sabrina mentioning being accused of stealing from the young, that's a direct reference to Driver's License, where Olivia refers to the blonde girl as being older than her. Which Sabrina is, I think, by about like 4 years, and then Joshua's like in the middle of them. And about Because I Like the Boy, Sabrina told Rolling Stone, "That song came from a really real place in my life, so it didn't feel right to not kind of write that song, but at the same time, I've had so many people that have heard it tell me how much they relate to it in their own way. Like, I went through years where people were believing all these things that people were saying about me that weren't true. People have experienced that similar situation in a completely different way than I've experienced it." It doesn't seem like Olivia or Joshua really ever clarified what happened with them, whether they were completely broken up, no longer talking before he started speaking to Sabrina, what the story actually was, but it seemed squashed by this point. I think they were seen chatting at the Grammys and seemed cool and chill, and then Sabrina even went to Olivia's concert. So even if they're not friends right now, I'm assuming that things are pretty cordial between them. This is one that has come up in past videos frequently. It's kind of like how levitating somehow always fits into a multi-song video that I'm doing. But anyway, back in 2022, Sabrina Carpenter filmed the music video for her song Feather inside of a church. And aside from the revealing funeral attire that Sabrina is wearing, the concept of the entire video is Sabrina killing men. She feels lighter like a feather without them. We filmed the video inside of the Blessed Virgin Mary Catholic Church, with the Diocese of Brooklyn calling it violent and sexually provocative. Apparently, this resulted in the priest who allowed Sabrina and her team permission to film the video having his administrative duties revoked, and a bishop performed a cleansing after the shoot. And in response to this controversy, Sabrina stated, "We got approval in advance, and Jesus was a carpenter." Later at Coachella, she wore a shirt with the same phrase on it. Like I was saying, personally, I did not see anyone calling Sabrina necessarily satanic for this, but just saying they felt like she was playing with their religion and then doubled down with a pun instead of an apology. And to my knowledge, nothing further came from this other than the Jesus was a carpenter shirts being available in her merch store. A few months ago in June, Sabrina unveiled the cover for her latest album, Man's Best Friend, and the internet was divided. Still is. And I'm sure this isn't the first that you're hearing of it, but just in case, the album cover depicts Sabrina on her knees with a man who's mostly out of frame grabbing a fistful of her hair. Sabrina's got a hand on his leg, and I'm still not quite sure how I read the expression on her face. Kind of looks like when someone just called your name or something. I wouldn't read it as anger, sadness, or fear, but I wouldn't consider it a completely happy or relaxed expression either. The only thing I am certain about is Sabrina's aware that she's being seen or watched. She's making direct eye contact with us. So even if it's like an intimate moment that we're looking in on, Sabrina is aware that we are looking. When reacting to this cover, people accuse Sabrina of demeaning herself and women by extension solely for the male gaze, since she's depicting herself in an inferior position to a man without explicitly denouncing it. Others accuse her of normalizing, even glamorizing domestic violence. We're just saying that at a time where women's rights are on the line, now may not be the time to release work that could be misinterpreted in such a way. On the other hand, people argued it's not Sabrina's or any artist's responsibility to worry about how every single individual is going to interpret their work, as in, even if you do lead with your best foot forward, don't intend anything malicious, there are still going to be people who read negatively into your work, maybe even on purpose. Because just because an artist depicts something we'd automatically read as negative or be critical of or have an aversion to, that doesn't mean that they're condoning that thing. I also saw people using reactions to the Man's Best Friend cover as part of the larger conversation about media being so boring and sanitized now. Because so many artists, labels, corporations, they want to appeal to as many people as possible, so their work often lacks any actual edge, stance, risk-taking, uniqueness, or any complexity. Because you're appealing mainly to the group who's going to be vocal about their outrage, maybe more so than appealing to actual fans. Initially, my main reaction was, oh, this cover is definitely going to piss people off, and she probably wants it to. As in, this seems clearly provocative and done to elicit a reaction, which it did. But I was also like, I don't think Sabrina Carpenter is dumb. I have found some of her songwriting and approaches to be pretty clever, actually. So I don't think Man's Best Friend is going to be about how all women need to be subservient to men. Man-Child was even out at this point, so I was just like, yeah, I don't think men in general are going to be depicted too positively on Man's Best Friend. And that was basically the only thought that I had. But I was like, I do wonder how the cover is going to work to actually represent what is on this album. But of course, there were several covers for Man's Best Friend, not just the one. A little later, seemingly partially in response to the outrage, Sabrina released a new album cover, one that she said was approved by God this time. This one in black and white shows her standing with her hand on the man's shoulder, so in a much more equal position, at least from what you're seeing immediately. Sabrina's still not looking at him or any of the other men in the photo. She's still with him, but there feels like this ominous vibe. Not like she's necessarily looking for an escape or a new man, but it's kind of like, who knows what's around the corner. It is a recreation of a photo taken of Marilyn Monroe and her husband Arthur Miller. I'm not sure if we're meant to make this connection or it was just done because everything is a reference these days, so this is just another one. But in relation to her album, the main connection I could see But in relation to Man's Best Friend, the main connection I could potentially see is her saying she's similarly been in the position of being in a relationship with someone who mistreats her. If there's a deeper reason at all beyond, I like this photo, it's Marilyn Monroe, I'm a blonde popular girly, I want to redo it. And then Sabrina followed up that alternative cover with two more. One with her in lingerie surrounded by lavish bouquets, and another one where she looks like she's in a dining room surrounded by men. Like the black and white cover, Sabrina's not looking at any of these men, nor are they looking at her, and they all have this kind of stiff mannequin-like appearance. And this isn't even Sabrina specific, but just the pop girls in general. I've also been wondering if I'm just not as into the album covers anymore, because I know a lot of these artists, they're going to release a few more anyway so that they can sell multiple albums. Because I'm genuinely kind of feeling like right now it's a marketing tactic to either underwhelm or straight up anger fans with that first cover so badly that they want another one, which you already had in your back pocket, just so they'll buy that second version if you drop it after they pre-order the first, which I'm sure several of them do. But anyway, let's talk about the music on the album. Thematically, Man's Best Friend is exactly what I thought it was going to be for the most part. This is basically the album that Sabrina foreshadowed in a few songs on Short and Sweet, like Please, 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 Slim Pickens, Good Graces, for example. So I was like, baseline, we're getting Men Are Disappointing on this album. Pretty safe bet. Even on Manchild, which is the album's lead single, Sabrina sings I Like My Men Incompetent. So I don't think the theme was going to be a secret even before this full album was out. But overall, it's very much like, wow, the bar was low and still my man, who may not entirely even be my man, is struggling to meet that bar. That's pretty much the point of Tears, where Sabrina's like thinking about you doing the bare minimum, like communicating, being a little bit helpful because that's so rare for you. It gets me going. And my assumption this is also meant to be pretty self-deprecating because Sabrina's standards and expectations are so low that this stuff actually excites her, when she could just leave this man for better, for her own sanity, her own peace of mind, but instead is just so wowed by him breathing. So she's part of the problem. Even looking at a song like Sugar Talking, Sabrina's like, these games are getting old. Like, for once you need to put your money or your lovin' where your mouth is, because once again, the bar's in hell, I'm giving you multiple chances and you are still not able to keep up.
So you're a big change man, I doubt it.
And to me, that is very closely related to one of my favorites on Man's Best Friend, which is Nobody's Son. And the song keeps up with this familiar thread of the man in question maybe being kind of manipulative with Sabrina. I'm not sure if we're supposed to believe her, so to speak, because the song is from her perspective, which often indicates that the answer is yes. But I say that to say, from her perspective, this guy is faking his newfound emotional maturity, still ain't shit, and is just using the turning over a new leaf of it all as an excuse to leave her, but also belittle her in the process. I'm not saying Sabrina Carpenter is a liar, because you can definitely still feel like someone ruined your life or messed you up, even if they don't see it that way, or they didn't do anything intentionally malicious. I'm just like, ooh, I wonder what the author's purpose was here. Feels a little unclear to me. Maybe because there are songs like Tears where Sabrina's self-call-outs are in the writing and she's not like, hey, pay attention, this next line here, I'm about to criticize myself. Rather, we're kind of supposed to read between the lines. And maybe it is a little bit of both. Sometimes we've met a person that we wouldn't consider to be the best. They move on, become a better person, and since that's not the version of the person we got, we refuse to believe it. So I'm not sure. And then I'm even more on the fence because of My Man on Willpower. And this is a song concept that I really like. I feel like we don't see it a lot. But I do think, like I was saying, this is something that we have felt with people, even if we don't want to admit it. And in this song, it seems like the guy that Sabrina has genuinely started... And in this song, it seems like the guy in question has genuinely started to get his life together. And as a result, he's not spending as much time with Sabrina.
He's busy, he's working, he doesn't have time for me.
And that's why things feel a little unclear to me. But I do think here it's more obvious that these positive changes are genuine. And Sabrina's still like, hey, like, what about me? She sings in the chorus. He fell in love with self-restraint and now it's getting out of hand. He used to be literally obsessed with me. I'm suddenly the least sought after girl in the land. And this is the song that reminds me most of the alternate cover of her surrounded by all of the flowers. But anyway, by the end of the song, the guy does leave Sabrina, seemingly for a better situation, even if it's not another woman, and he's just going to live his best life and self-actualize, and she's feeling pretty dejected afterward. So like I was saying, not really I'm so thrilled in my relationship. I feel like this man is treating me exactly how I dreamed sorts of songs on Man's Best Friend. Which I do think you can definitely argue that the album cover indeed relates to that. Sabrina's not feeling like a companion in the form of an equal, a partner, but something more like a pet, like a dog, man's best friend. At the least, she feels misused, but like I was saying with Nobody's Son, and even We Almost Broke Up Again last night, you can tell just from the title of that song, Sabrina also points to feeling mistreated. In listening to the album, I was wondering, like, what does she ever really do about this, other than maybe break up with the guy? But we also know from songs that are on this album that the breakups do not always last. And so now I want to get back into talking about the album imagery like I mentioned earlier. In these shots, the alternative covers, 3 out of 4 of them, like I was saying, have men, clearly depicted as objects, inconsequential, set dressing, if you will. So why are the useless men so present if they are so useless? Even if they happen to die in the end, which has become the norm for a Sabrina Carpenter music video. But it's only able to become the norm if they're so present to begin with. But we could possibly take their death at the end to mean Sabrina's learned a new lesson, Sabrina set a new boundary, or she's just done with that guy specifically until the next video. To me, this can't be interpreted as anything other than these men suck, but I can't seem to leave them alone, not be concerned with them. Even after the breakups, men are still centered to the point where you have songs like Go-Go Juice, where Sabrina's on a rampage calling her exes and ex-hookups. Very much I'm leaving here with something.
Call someone. Ain't nobody safe when I'm a little bit drunk.
It also kind of relates to the I'm in such an emotionally low point, I'll deal with anybody, even if I know they suck, even if I know they're a loser, even if I know we're incompatible. I just need someone to fill the time. And I don't think Sabrina is framing this as positive or a healthy thing, because she's talking about being drunk at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday, and also says in the chorus something to the effect of, girls who drink this much liquor, they've had their hearts broken. So the actions, the need for someone, noticeably a man, not a bestie or relative, anything like that, at least in this song, it's not framed as healthy or positive. This was actually another one of my favorites on Man's Best Friend. But going off of that and thinking of songs like House Tour, I was just like, oh, are we left to think the cycle continues?
Come inside. Baby, what's mine is now yours.
That sounds serious and ominous, but you get it. House Tour, also a bop. It's like a hookup after a dinner date. You know, the house is a metaphor for Sabrina's body. It's unserious, as she said, very fun vibes. Sabrina also did say that it was one of the last songs written for the album and was written mainly just for fun, after she and her writers have been working on the album for so long and we're just like, let's do something fun, let's celebrate. So I don't know if that means that she doesn't see it as very connected to the album story or concept. Maybe, maybe not, but it's included on the album, so fair game. And even this guy, I can't tell if she's that impressed. I would say it seems not. Like, she doesn't think the guy's disgusting, but she's also not like, oh, I just met my husband. And so maybe in a way this is like New Leaf Turned. I've learned to expect nothing from a man, especially the ones who have shown me that I probably can't expect anything from them but a good time. I'm not sure if Goodbye is a bonus track. Genius says yes, but I don't think so, because when I'm streaming the album, it's there. But anyways, this is the breakup for good song, because Sabrina is saying you're losing me for life. Let me say it in every language I know. That way you will understand it.
Bye means that you're losing me for life.
And again, it's like she's referenced the breakups not lasting in a few songs that are even on this album. But I do think we're meant to take this as the final note that Man's Best Friend ends on, if it is indeed the final track. So having heard Man's Best Friend, my thoughts on the cover and the alternates by extension is that, you know what, I can see it. It works for me if this is an album where Sabrina is challenging herself for being a little male-centric or pointing out the hypocrisy and how disappointing men are, but like, I keep engaging with the disappointing men. I keep making them the focus of my romantic life and my work in a sense, at least for this album, in a good bit of short and sweet. In her interview with Gayle King, Sabrina explained the cover as being in on the control, being in on your lack of control, and when you want to be in control. Which, yeah, I think we get all of those things like House Tour, Goodbye, When Did You Get Hot, Don't Worry, I'll Make You Worry. Those songs, I would agree that Sabrina is either in control or in on the lack thereof. But what goes unsaid is that we get more than this. We definitely get songs where Sabrina is not in control or is reacting to something outside of her control that she doesn't seem in on, that she didn't seem to allow, that she doesn't seem to have agreed to. Like My Man on Willpower, Never Getting Laid, or even Go-Go Juice. Unless she means that in on the lack of control is something that she's come to realize now at a later point. Because like I was saying, you can write a song, you can write something about misbehaving or doing something that isn't healthy, you know you shouldn't be doing in the moment, and kind of write it from a critical place, like I think she's doing in Go-Go Juice, for example. But it's like in the present moment in which the song exists. Would I say that Sabrina is in control? Not necessarily. Like, yes, she's making the physical choice to call all these men up, but the song is a song about her spiraling a little bit. Over the last week or so, I saw several headlines also claiming Sabrina Carpenter shocked by reaction to album cover. Sabrina didn't expect reaction to cover. And honestly, I was like, girl, what? But maybe it is a misquote. Let me find out what she actually did say. So I did find, according to Variety, Sabrina's saying that yes, she knew there was nuance to the cover, but whenever she does something, there's a bit of a wink to it. She's in on the joke. And she went on to say, if I'm being completely transparent, I don't do anything anticipating what the reaction will be. I only do things that speak to me, that feel right, and make sense when you hear the music. When I came up with the imaging for it, it was clear to me what it meant. So the reaction is fascinating to me. You just watch it unravel and go, wow. So not necessarily her saying that she didn't expect it, more so that she didn't think about it.
They see it in a way that I hoped, in a way that I experienced making it, which is always, that's always like A+, gold star, like you get it, to me, right? But then you have the people that just see it from a different lens because they're living life differently than me. And then their experience is completely different. I always think that that's so fascinating for me. And it's something that, as much as I might not like it every time or like every opinion, I can sometimes be like, maybe that's a good point. Like maybe I didn't think about it that way. Or
Then she went on to say, submission is both dominant and submissive. It really depends on what your intentions are and what you want and what you crave and what you need. The image, the way I see it, is a metaphor, but I'm sure the other people are like, dang, she's a sub. So reading her words on it, in my opinion, nothing she's saying is really incorrect or objectionable, but I hate that it depends on what you intend when you're being asked about your intentions in an interview. And I'm well aware that every single artist who makes an album on earth is not going to write us an essay and tell us exactly what the album is about. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying. And I feel like with Sabrina, especially since she is someone that the internet has turned on before for less, I would think the reaction to the Man's Best Friend cover would have been the expected reaction. And like I said, I saw it and I was like, please, I know exactly what conversations are going to be had on both sides. And not even in a negative way. It's just like, oh, you definitely understand how people can interpret imagery like this, and that some people are going to feel negatively about it, consider it violent, demeaning, while others may not feel that way. I think part of being in control of your imagery, of your artistry, is understanding ways that people are going to interpret something, even if you're aware that many will interpret it or react to it negatively. That doesn't mean that you have to scrap the plan. And genuinely, because it seems so obvious how divisive this cover would be, I thought that was part of the point of the marketing, and genuinely, I still do. Because I'm like, this is the same artist who wrote 15 Minutes, a song about being way smarter and intentional with her image than she's given credit for.
Say something that shit crazy. I'll do it, don't you make me.
And also how she's not beyond using a little bit of outrage or controversy to get people talking. That's showbiz, baby. As always, thank you so very much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you can stick around for more. Also, if you'd like to become a channel member and get early access to videos, the link is in the description. And again, thank you so very much for watching. I love you all so very much, and we'll see you so very soon. Bye-bye.